I'm joined today with this sock puppet representing Jamie. Say hello, Jamie.
Hey guys, I vape.
We have been looking at all the information that's been being compiled over at the Charizard Lounge. It's a great resource, great free resource if you guys haven't never checked it out. But basically what the guy does is he takes all the information from cities and he compiles it all together so that you get a total breakdown of what decks won each week. And then the data just accumulates till everything's over, and it gives you a pretty clear picture about specifically what decks are doing well. And if you really want a deeper breakdown, you can look at it by week, and you can see where the metagame shifts at, so you know what decks are beating other decks, not specifically what deck has been played the most.
Shout out to Andrew Wimble.
Yep. I was trying to think of his name there for a second. I get used to seeing people's pictures on like Facebook. That's what I associate them with. You and Philip have the same picture. It drives me nuts.
Well, I've changed it now.
I couldn't never figure out who was saying what. But we've looked at the top 10, and we'll kind of break them down here. Coming in at number 10 is Night March.
Always a good play.
The deck's super solid. You won't have access to the new Puzzle of Time unless you play in Florida. But I expect Puzzle of Time to make a big difference in that meta, or at least change. Something's going to change there, and I'm pretty sure it's Puzzle Time. But
I think it'll replace Teammates in a lot of builds.
Yeah, because you can just grab. You're already dumping everything anyway, and it's easier just to get it back than to search for it or it to be prized.
Exactly.
But Night March is a good deck. It done especially well in Standard, so a lot of people are going to migrate to that anyway. So it's a deck you need to be thinking about. If you're not going to play it, you need to know how to play against it. You need to know what your weaknesses against that deck is.
Most of my decks, when I test them, can they beat Night March is one of the first questions I ask myself where I play test against Night March.
Because you're for sure going to see it.
Yeah, you see it. We don't see it as much around here, but a lot of places it's a lot more common.
It's one of the cheaper decks to build too.
Yeah.
And it's one of the few decks right now that transitions well from Standard to Expanded. So you only have to invest in that one deck, and that helps out a lot of players who are on a tighter budget. Next, number 9, this deck. And this information, like I said, you can get from Charizard Lounge. It'll show you the percentage of times that this deck made top 4, and then you can check out how many times it actually won the event. And the more times that it got first moves it further up on the list.
Yep.
So next is Sableye Garbodor, and I'm a personal fan of this deck.
And I hate playing against it.
Yeah. Now here comes the problem. We're looking at cities data, and when you're going through the top, through the main field, you're playing a best of 1. So you only need to win game 1 versus if you play best of 3 and they can tie it on you by winning game 2 or taking more prizes, I think.
I feel like that's a lot of what helped Ente's performance in Standard Cities is being a best of 1. So you could just wham, bam, go all out aggressive and not have to worry about your opponent thinking about, oh, well, I already know how this person plays this deck, so I know what I can do to...
And Entei really punishes you if you stumble at all at the beginning. Like, most times if you have a bad start, you're in a bad position anyway, but you can kind of work your way out of it. Entei just plows over you so fast that if you get a bad start, you're going to lose.
I was considering seeing if I could migrate the deck over to Expanded, see if I could get some Silver Bangles on it, run Laser Bank, things of that nature to do the bigger amounts of damage. I know Manectric is a very common presence both in Standard and Expanded, and Entei can't take out a Mega Manectric in one hit, even with Giovanni. So I was hoping maybe Laserbank could do something like that. But I think I might want to go in a little bit different direction this time around. But I have been trying to see if I can migrate Entei into Expanded, but Standard is such a different format from Expanded that it's very difficult to determine if you play mostly Standard, what's going to be best for Expanded without lists like this.
All right. Number 8 is Vileplume Vespiquen. And this is a Wambolt deck too.
Yes, this is a creation of Andrew Wambolt, or a creation that Andrew Wambolt popularized.
Right. And it's also a deck that transitions from standard to expanded. So
you are a monster, Andrew. You're a monster.
But both it and the Sable-Eye Garbodor deck only picked up their popularity at the end. So they may actually be a lot better than what's represented.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think they really only showed up like the last 2 weeks of Cities. And Cities was dominated by, a host of other decks before that. But Vileplume Vespiquen, I've been testing around with it a little bit. I like it. It's really fast. If you can get your lock set up, and they don't have access to like a Hex Maniac on turn 1, you're all right. But even with Hex Maniac, the problem is they shut off their Shamans, so they don't get an ideal setup against you. But have you played around with it any?
I've played around with it a little bit. It's definitely an interesting deck, and
it's actually a really skill intensive deck.
Yeah,
because you have to first set up that lock. So you have to know exactly what to get rid of and what to throw out, because you basically go through the entire deck turn 1, and then you have to maintain that lock for a good 4 or 5 turns.
Unban trump card, make Pokemon great again.
Oh, that would be the worst decision ever.
Oh, that would kill the format.
It just makes hammers better again.
Makes a whole lot of things better.
But hammers, toads, they're good enough on their own.
Splash Energy is going to make Toad a whole lot better.
You think so?
Yeah.
That's something to try.
I mean, when it's knocked out, the ability to return it back to your hand, along with Time Puzzle to return the DCEs.
Could see that. Time Puzzle is just going to be a beast all unto itself.
Oh, yeah.
You're just going to see your doom waiting for you. Next, we have another deck that is easily transferred from standard into expanded, and that is the Mega Rayquaza EX deck, which Ryan has just now picked up some cards for. He's going to get started on that as well.
I'm working on building it. Now that Jamie isn't playing it as often, I feel like I can kind of try to make it my own a little bit.
Now, is this a deck you would play in expanded?
Not sure.
Not sure.
I'm building it right now for standard because that's mostly what we play around here.
Yeah, we didn't get any expanded stuff. I'd really wish we'd had one Cities that was expanded.
I don't. The cards are more expensive.
I'd take care of you. We got you covered.
Hey.
That's what teammates are for. Or you can get.
I thought teammates were for. Yeah, I was going to make the joke. And judges are for shuffling both hands into decks and drawing 4 cards.
That's right. Let's see. Number 6. This one is a really popular deck in both standard and expanded as well. Mega Manectric EX. You can pair it with about anything. So, but the straight build is just as brutal as pairing it with anything in expanded. You've got access to Max Potion, which you got those back now.
Rough Seas.
It's a nasty deck, and it preys upon one of the best decks in the format, which is Eviltal.
Yup. Which, since we haven't heard about it yet, might be higher up on the list.
Maybe. It just
maybe Tool Drop's number 1.
Number 1 in our hearts.
Oh, yeah. Number 1 in my heart for sure. Could you imagine Toolbox Sigilif with 4 Fighting Spirit Belts on it? It's got 90 HP to start with. You add another 160 to it. Ugh.
That's crazy.
Eco Arm to get the tools back. As you can tell, I've been thinking about this.
Tool Drop is that one deck that shows up when everybody takes out their megaphones.
When everybody takes out their megaphones. I know Tool Scrapper is kind of the preferred card in Expanded.
Well, now we've got BS Seeker and we've got Time Puzzle. Space is going to start getting even more limited. So, somebody could sneak in there with the Tool Drop deck.
With the Tool Drop and just kick absolute tail.
Clean house.
I was considering going down to Florida just to do that, just to build a Tool Drop deck with 4 Fighting Spirit Belts and see what happens.
Let's be honest, though. He was really going to take round.
Yes. With a Charizard, even though
tail.
Charizard doesn't have a round face.
That's right. All right.
Round's back, baby.
Now we're in the top 5. First one up, number 5, Blastoise.
Archestoise is
Archestoise.
very, very good deck. That's pretty much all there is to it. It's a great deck. It consistently, there's a consistent enough build for it to work.
Yep, it's powerful. It can struggle if Vespiquen shows up in large numbers, but
if swarms of bees show up.
It is a stout deck, though. It's
very good.
It's very consistent for a deck that's running off a gimmick. I mean, it does its job well.
This was a gimmick that was originally presented by Puka as Bad Deck Monday.
And
perfected by world-renowned Heretic by Jacob Van Wagner.
Yep. Mastered by Jacob Van Wagner.
He won with it.
Well, that's what I mean.
But I think Steve really perfected it.
Steve is the guy that made that deck possible, because up until that point, like, everybody was trying to figure out how to get rid of their hand. So they were running cards like Maintenance and things like that. And
when all you need to do is draw your hand up to play it down.
Yep. Steve took care of that, showed it worked really well at like 3 states.
I mean, from what I've seen, Steve's a very aggressive player. Looking at his past builds that he's put on his channel, I mean, Plasma Lugia, Flying Bison, things of that nature. You can tell he's generally a very aggressive player. So sometimes it takes aggressive players to figure out what the best style is. When you put the right deck in the right player's hands.
Yeah, he's also a big proponent of Night March too, so he really likes that strategy. I'll put a link in the description below, guys. I want you guys to go check out his channel too.
Yeah, Steve's a good dude.
He does a lot of good stuff, and he is very approachable.
For sure.
Let's see. Next on our list, we get to Seismitoad Giratina, the no fun poo-poo deck.
Matt Price destroyed me in Fort Wayne with this deck. Destroyed me. Like, I couldn't do anything. And it was not a good time. And yeah, it's a good deck.
It's if you want to win, it is a deck you play.
I acknowledge that Seismitoad is a very good card, but I also consider it very boring to play.
Yeah, it's one of those. You're not going to have fun with this deck.
No, but it'll get the job done.
It does its job. It does it well, and there should be many tables flipped actually,
and set on fire.
That's right. But if that deck's not enough for you, our number 3 deck is Seismitoad Crobat.
Toadbats.
So if you don't like playing items and getting spread damage, that's the one to go with, and that's actually my preferred version of Seismitoad. I like it. I like being able to spread damage around to where I need it. You get back lasers in this format, Verbank, so that's great. Like, Seismitoad is really like, this is its format.
Question. Would Toad Manectric Bats fit in as a Toad Bats or a Manectric deck on that list?
I think he had it lower.
He had Toad Manectric Bats by itself lower. Okay.
I think so. Like, there was like 30-some decks on his list. Like, he took everything that won, and he categorized them the best he could. Like, there's some really obscure ones at the bottom of the list that have, like, no first place wins.
Round.
I heard it
don't think
almost
so.
made the list, but he had to cut one.
Oh, bummer.
But Toad might be listed like 4th place and 3rd place on this list, but I think when we get to regionals, I think that number shifts quite a bit because a lot of the better players gravitate to those 2 decks. One, because it allows them to shut the game down and force their opponents to play at their pace that they want them to. That's why you see top players using that strategy, controlling the game. And when you have results from cities, what you get is if you're not playing in, like, say, the Midwest, up around Illinois and down that way, you're not playing with a super high concentrated amount of the best players. You're playing with good players, but just not the elite players because they all seem to be from that area. So, and that's why I think when you get to regionals, you'll see a shift between like Toad coming in at the back end of the top 4 and moving closer to the front of it.
Yeah.
If not the best deck.
I could see that.
Because it requires a different kind of player. I heard somebody talking once that a lot of just average players can do really well with Toad without really being good at it just by slowing the game down. And they happen to catch a lot of average players too and beat them. But if they play against a really experienced player that plays Toad, it's a completely different game because they're looking at intangibles differently than, say, a player that just knows that I'm keeping you from playing your items.
Yeah.
And they're setting up for that. I see a lot of players not set up for the end game, which is bring up a shaman and knock it out with a grenade hammer.
Yeah.
Like, people are so afraid to let go of that lock, even though they've had it locked in for like 10 turns. And I think that's the big difference between an elite player and a good player. All right. So back to our list. Number 2 is Evital EX. I would have really thought this would have been number 1.
Dark Patch, Darkrai, Sableye.
It just has everything going for it. It is an extremely potent deck. It can play defense and it can play offense. Like, it's just really good. I mean, and Evital EX is such a versatile Pokemon anyway. You can either slap a DC on it to do a lot of damage, or you can slap a DC on it and Y-Cyclone it back to the bench to keep from getting knocked out by an opposing EX or Evital. So it does a lot of different things. But
Baby Evital by itself is a very, very good card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can really use it to your advantage to slow the game down to where they're not taking any big chunk surprises.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just building your bench up. And then you've still got Darkrai. So you've got all this free retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And you got a guy that can, once you got a lot of damage, you can just flip it back to the bench, pull up like a shaman, put a muscle band on Darkrai, and take 4 prizes that fast. And he's like, if I was going to regionals, that's the deck I would play. I really think. As much as I like Toad, I think I feel more comfortable playing Evital. I've had a lot more success with it. I know that Toad might actually be the better deck for me to play, but I think I just feel more comfortable with Evital. Have you played much with it? Because I know you were a little bit newer. Like, you wasn't around for Dark Patch and stuff.
Yeah, I wasn't around for that stuff. I've played baby Evital and Tyranitar decks and stuff. I mean, I've mostly played standard. I started with Roaring Skies launch.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, my game plan was, I thought, standard was going to be XY forward. I never thought of the possibility of expanded being a thing. So I held off on buying cards like Burbank and Silver Bangle, Hypnotoxic Laser, the things that I'm looking for now, because expanded is a thing. So I feel like I'm kind of behind the curve on that. I'm definitely not the best person to ask about that. And I'm willing to admit, hey, I don't know.
Well, I mean, we all start somewhere, and a lot of the people that's really good at expanded it is they just took what they knew from the past standard and just applied it to it.
Mm-hmm.
So they have that going for them. But that brings us to our number one deck, Ryan.
Yeah.
What do you think it is?
I got a feeling it's got something to do with Garbodor.
It does not. The number one deck that you could have played at Cities to get yourself a top 4 berth and a potential win, the most wins, was Vespiquen.
Bees.
So
Bees Flareon. Is it Bees Flareon? Yep.
I'm assuming that's what it is. They just have it listed as Vespiquen, but Flareon is pretty much I think it's a 2 of in that deck. I may be wrong. They may have bumped it up to 4, but it's mostly just there to blacksmith on those energies and give you a secondary.
Not that Flareon.
Which one?
Vengeance.
Yeah. You put you blacksmith 2 fire energies back on it. It gives you an extra set.
Back on Flareon. I thought you were talking about on the Vespiquen.
Oh, no.
No, that's the popular plan standard.
Yeah.
See, standard.
Yeah,
it's hardwired.
I mean that may change though once we head into Florida. You don't need DC. You don't need fire energies anymore. You can just run time puzzles.
Mm-hmm.